Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Continue to help the station to grow. You know, I said to myself I wasn't going to speak on this topic a whole lot because, again, this is primarily a Minnesota sports station focusing on the Minnesota Vikings with a little dabbling of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I have to talk on this Ohio State thing, man, because it's really getting to annoy me. I remember when I used to have conversations with Flip Saunders, the late, great Minnesota Timberwolves head coach. And Flip used to always tell me that if you put 20 coaches in a room and you had them game plan for a team, you would probably have 20 different game plans on how to stop the team. And that's something that has really resonated with me in terms of my coaching career and when I'm looking at games. It's the same way with fans and people with their wants and needs. If you get 20 people in the room and you wanted them to speculate on Ryan Day and whether or not Ryan Day should be fired, or if people are overreacting, you will probably have a bunch of different perspectives on what should happen next and what happened on Saturday. My thought is, I'm trying to, I always try to see things from another person's perspective. And I'm trying to figure out when I see a lot of Ryan Day apologists, and I won't even go to say a Ryan Day apologist. I'm going to say people that support Ryan Day. I have not, someone educate me, enlighten me on why there should not even be a thought of change. Whether or not there should be change or not, I'm not even going to go there. But why should there not even be a thought in change? You could arguably say that ever since Urban Meyer left the Ohio State Buckeyes, we have lost our identity of who we are as a football program. Those Urban Meyer teams were tough on defense, could ground and pound you into the ground offensively, usually had a mobile quarterback, and could game plan and make plays down the field. And I think ever since Ryan Day has taken over, we have lost that identity. You can't say that over the past few years that other than this year, our defense has traditionally, and I underline the word traditionally, been what it was in the past year in and year out. Now, the defense this year is one of the best defenses in the country, but it took us a while to get back there, if you remember. And now we're there. We've become more of a pass-happy team under the regime of Ryan Day than we were under previous coaching staffs when we can effectively run the ball. You could say our running game has dissipated from year to year. Like that's a fact, man. That's a fact. That's not criticizing anybody. That's just calling a spade a spade. Things have just not been what they used to be. And now we have this product of what the Ohio State Buckeyes really are. The thing that bothers me about Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes coaching staff is that they've been under the fire, man, for the past 4 years. You've had disrespectful comments come out by Lou Holtz calling us soft, and Ryan Day took offense to that. Remember that? Then you had Harbaugh coming out saying that Ryan Day was born on third base. You remember that? It's like when you have all of these people, you got some of the media. Rich Eisen is a big Michigan fan. You have all of these people coming out and being disrespectful and talking about you and your coaching staff and your players about what you can do and what you can't get done. You would think that when you go back to the lab and you start game planning for these games, there's just a little bit more oomph to it. Collectively as a group, coaching staff, players alike. And it just amazes me that when you have this level of vitriol from the opponent, the disrespect, the comments, all the stuff, that you can't find a way to muster up a win, especially when your defense does the job. Michigan only scores 13 points, and the Ohio State Buckeyes can only muster 10 points and get shut out in the second half. Like, you just didn't do it, but you had to put the cherry on top of the sundae and get shut out the second half. That worries me. Like, anyone in the world gets motivated by what people tell them they can and what they can and what they cannot do. And usually when somebody tells you what you cannot do, or there is a level of disrespect, there's a little bit of emotion that goes in that, and you focus a little bit harder, you prepare a little bit harder. You look for all the strengths and weaknesses of your game plan, and you make sure that things do not happen. And Ryan Day and his crew has failed with that. This was the setup job. If this was a pitcher at a baseball diamond, this would be the equivalent of a pitcher throwing a meatball across the plate to a home run hitter. Like, if you can't get it done this year with the Michigan team that was on the field, man, I don't know when and if you're ever going to get it done. Here's what bothers me. I know a lot of people are going to try to compare Will Howard with our former quarterback last year. And I'm going to say this: Will Howard is the only player on the Ohio State's roster that has won a championship, meaning a Big 12 championship. We haven't even won a Big 10 championship. So that's number one. So when Will Howard was brought in as the starting quarterback this year, I had no problem with it. And let me tell you something. Will Howard didn't play his best game, but Will Howard is an upgrade at quarterback. I don't care what anybody says out there. He is an upgrade at quarterback that played a bad game against Michigan. So now you throw in this championship quarterback where he's got to throw the ball to Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith. With all the preparation that's supposed to go into that game, all the emotion that's supposed to go into that game, all the want-to that's supposed to go into that game, you can't muster any points in the second half? Man, that's just an indictment on coaching. So again, I'm trying to figure out, educate me, why should there not be a thought of head coaching change at Ohio State? Let's look at the running back position. Quinshon Judkins, the best running back in the SEC last year. You had Travion Henderson, a phenomenal running back at Ohio State. Number one running back in his recruiting class coming out of high school. You got both of them in the backfield at the same time. And you can only muster 10 points in a game, 0 points in the second half, 66 total yards of rushing between the two. Explain to me again why there should not be a thought of change. You've got all-world running backs. You've got all-world wide receivers against a depleted Michigan squad, and you only can muster 10 points. Explain to me. Ryan Day supporters Why shouldn't there be a thought of change? And here's the one thing that I have heard from multiple analysts and multiple people that just kind of burns my bridge. It puts me in a situation where I have to feel like, am I a disloyal Ohio State fan? Or am I just a realist? Like the one thing that I hear from a lot of people on TV as well, Ohio State, what they have to do is they have to go back to the drawing board and they have to focus on the playoffs because they still have a chance to win a national championship. So although the Michigan loss was a bad loss, they got to focus on winning these next 4 games. My question to you is, hypothetically, yeah, you're right. Realistically, yeah, you're right. They got a chance. Like for me to sit here and say that Ohio State doesn't have a chance, that would be foolish on my part because percentage-wise, there is a chance. But let me let you in on a secret. And maybe this makes me a disloyal Ohio State fan. And if it does, well, then so be it. We will see who is right and who is wrong. And for the most part, man, I hope I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I will come on Unconventional Playbook and I will admit it. I'm not afraid. But let me let you in on a secret. Ohio State, and excuse the grammar, but Ohio State ain't running the table to win a national championship. My question to you is this. What have you seen out of Ryan Day and his coaching staff in terms of being able to prepare this team for games against some of the best national teams in the country under the fire when the lights come on, plying their way to a national championship? What in his resume makes you feel like they can be successful doing that? People act like, well, that's just going to be an easy thing to do. Ohio State has the best talent in the country. They can just flip a switch. Man, there's a disconnect somewhere. We had the best roster in the country on Saturday against Michigan, and we were only able to muster 10 points and look pedestrian. So what makes you think this is going to happen in the college football playoffs? Like, we haven't been to a Big Ten championship game in 4 years under Ryan Day. So all of a sudden, in the next couple weeks, they're going to figure something out. And all of a sudden, we're going to be able, against some of the best teams in the country, we're going to be able to figure something out and win 4 games and then win a national championship. Man, you can miss me with that. When are you going to believe that what you're seeing is what you're seeing out of Ryan Day? And again, I am not a guy that says Ryan Day needs to be fired today or get out of here today. There are ramifications that comes with that. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. I'm just saying, when this thing is all said and done, the administration has to look at that football program and figure out if this is what we want to be. Because it's a tough question. Again, as I said before in previous podcasts, man, I'm not worried when we play the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm not worried when we play the Indiana Hoosiers. I'm not worried when we play Purdue. I'm not worried about those games. I'm worried about the Michigan games, and I'm worried about legit top 5 opponents. I'm not talking about Penn State because they're frauds too. I mean, these questions have to be answered, and it just perplexes me why people feel like there shouldn't be any thought at all in replacing Ryan Day. If you're an outsider, if you're not part of Buckeye Nation and you're an outsider, what you see is a fan base that gets really upset over one game. And it probably makes us seem a little bit crazy. But for me, it's not just the one game. It's the whole body of work. things that I see, even when they win games and they struggle against teams that they shouldn't struggle against, and then they come in and they play top 5 opponents and they can't beat the top 5 opponents. And then there's the Michigan thing where all of a sudden they can't seem to beat Michigan. And for a year's time, you built this team with NIL money just for this game and to be able to go and win a national championship. And for all intents and purposes, when you look at the roster on paper, you've got all the weapons in the world, and you and your coaching staff, Ryan Day, couldn't find a way to get it done. And now you have the apologists out there that says, oh, we're just a little bit too hard on Ryan Day. Well, again, it all depends on what you want, people. It all depends on what you want. There's been a lot of people talking about, there's not a lot of people out there that's going to want to take the Ohio State job. Who's out there that's going to want to take it? I don't think there's anybody out there. First of all, you can miss me with that. Because when has anybody talked to anybody about the Ohio State job within the last year? There hasn't been any talk. So people that are saying that, that's just ignorant. How do you know? Number two, you're taking over one of the best programs in the country in terms of resources. You saw that with the NIL deals that we had this summer. So why wouldn't somebody out there want that? And then the Ohio State administration pretty much can sign a paycheck and pay a coach whatever they want to come out of retirement, to come out of the NFL, to be promoted, whatever they want, whoever they target. And I guarantee that person will at least listen and come to the table if the administration wants them at Ohio State. That is the power of Ohio State football. So all of these podcasters, sports analysis people that are talking about there's not anybody that wants the Ohio State job, that people don't want it. Well, who has Ohio State talked to recently about their head coaching job? Nobody. Because they've been putting all of their eggs in the basket of Ryan Day trying to support him. There hasn't been any talks behind the scenes. So in terms of you trying to create a narrative about nobody wants the Ohio State job, you can miss me with that. That's fake news, is what that is. If the job at Ohio State came open, there would be a lot of coaches that would want that job. And I'm telling the administration at Ohio State, man, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful because this is not about changing coaches. It's about who you can get next after Ryan Day. The one thing you can say about Ryan Day is that he's going to have us in the conversation every year of being one of the top teams in the Big Ten. That's what he does. Outside of that, all bets are off. He's going to have us being one of the top teams in the Big Ten every year. That's kind of his plateau. After that, it's a crapshoot. Resume says so. This is not me saying it. This is what his resume has said, and this is what he has shown over the past few years at Ohio State. It's a crapshoot. But I think that Ohio State, they have to get back down to football, man. They have to get down. I have just always said Ohio State is a little bit too cute to me. They care about things that are unimportant. Unimportant. They just need to get back down to football, winning in the trenches, not worried about being cute, not worried about being finesse, not worried about trying to score 70 points on people with all these fancy misdirection plays and all that stuff. They need to line them up, and they need to play football. And you have to bring a coach in there that has that mindset, also with the ability to be able to recruit. I am not an anti-Ryan Day guy, but I'm realistic enough to know that for what we want as a program, maybe Ryan Day just can't provide to us. Maybe he's not that guy. And it doesn't make him a bad coach. As I said before, there are definitely levels to this, man. There are definitely levels to this. Remember our running backs coach, Tony Alford? Tony Alford left Ohio State to go to Michigan. So I don't know the whole exact story of that, but just think about Tony Alford, who has been at Ohio State and decides to leave. And not only does he decide to leave, but he decides to go to the arch enemy, the team up north. This rivalry is so intense that, again, Ohio State likes to do all this cute stuff and cross out M's all over the place in Columbus and on campus instead of focusing on whooping ass in the football game. This rivalry is so intense that the fan base and the program goes to the extreme to do that type of stuff and not even mention Michigan's name. They call him the team up north, and this guy leaves Ohio State and goes to Michigan. That's a little peek behind the curtain of some things that has been going on at Ohio State, man. Like, this is, for me, it's just getting a little bit tough. And the Ohio State Buckeyes, they can keep Ryan Day. And if they decide to keep Ryan Day, man, I'm still going to be a fan. I love the Buckeyes. I've been watching Ohio State ever since I was a little kid. Me and my dad used to travel from Warrensville to Columbus and go to all the Ohio State, Michigan games growing up. Those were fond memories, man. Those were great memories. And so there's nothing that's going to stop me from being an Ohio State fan. But if they decide to keep Ryan Day, the one thing that I will not get into is that I'm not going to get into talks of being in the Big Ten championship game. I'm not going to get into talks of winning a national championship. Because if Ryan Day is the head coach at Ohio State, then that's not my expectation. Like, I'm not a fool. When you show me who you are over an extended period of time, I'm going to believe you. And so if Ryan Day is the head coach at Ohio State going forward, I'll support Ryan Day. But I'm not going to be bamboozled into thinking that they're going to be Big Ten champions. Because at some point during the season, they're going to fold tent somewhere. And I'm not going to get into this thing of winning a national championship each year as long as Ryan Day is head coach. Because the playoffs have been expanded, we'll probably make the playoffs every year because we'll win and we'll be cute during the regular season, which will give us a good enough regular season record to make the college football playoffs because it expanded to 12 games. If it was 12 teams, if it was still 4 teams, Ohio State wouldn't make it this year. We'd be out of the playoffs again. So we better be lucky that it's a 12-team playoff and we'll make it, and that will be the standard at Ohio State. Cute team, win a lot of games, beat up on the Purdues, the Minnesotas, the Iowas, the Indianas, the Maryland, the Rutgers. Come a little bit short, won't make it to the Big Ten championship game, and will not win a national championship. That will be the new standard for Ohio State football. When someone shows you who they are, don't fight it, especially over a long period of time. Believe it. And that's what I believe about Ryan Day and his coaching staff. I know it sounds like I'm throwing them under the bus. I just think our standards at Ohio State, or at least they have been, very high. It's winning national championships, being in that national championship game. I don't believe that we have the coaching staff to be able to do that. Why? Because they have the best college roster on the planet, and they couldn't do anything with it. And in their 2 biggest games, they came up short. The Oregon game and the Michigan game. And last year, it was the Michigan game again. So for me to sit here and say and feel like they're going to flip a switch at some point, man, I just don't see that happening. But if you see that happening, tell me why. Put it in the comments. I will respond. This is Unconventional Playbook, so I don't mind responding to those comments. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Ohio State Buckeyes, man. I think they're at a crossroads, and it kind of depends on what you want. You shouldn't be afraid to make a decision. Remember when Nick Saban had Tua Tagovailoa come in the second half of a championship game when Jalen Hurts had gotten him there? Man, what guts did that take? But he knew what he had seen over a long period of time wasn't going to get him to W. So he wasn't afraid to make a change. Remember Mark Jackson and the Golden State Warriors? Good team. Made it to the playoffs several years. They had to make a change, bring in Steve Kerr. Wasn't afraid to make a change because what they were seeing wasn't what they wanted their franchise to be. My Minnesota Vikings moved off of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had good years with Minnesota over a long, extended period of time. Kwesi and the boys felt like, there's another level to this. They got off Kirk Cousins, went to Sam Darnold. When you're at a crossroads, you can't be afraid to make a decision for the betterment of your program and the betterment of your franchise. That's my message to Ohio State fans and Ohio State administration. This has been Unconventional Playbook. We will see you when we see you. Latre, take us home, man.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?